These are the top 12 forgotten 70s bands that changed music forever. The hitmakers and genre shakers who ruled the radio, packed arenas, and shaped the sound of a generation. So why can't anyone remember their names? You danced to them in high school, but somewhere along the way they vanished from the spotlight. But their sound, their music never left. So let's crank it up and rediscover the bands that quietly rewrote rock history while no one was watching. The Giles Band. If Centerfold instantly brings back memories of jukeboxes, gym dances, or that one time you learned what rhymed with classroom, then the Giles Band already left their mark. But before their definitive 70s tunes made them a fixture on early MTV, the Giles Band had already been tearing the roof off of venues across America for over a decade. They weren't just a rock band, they were a full-blown rock and soul circus, with harmonica solos, sweaty sax breaks, and Peter Wolf working the mic like he was part preacher and part party host. Their 70s run was electric, with albums like Live Full House capturing the raw energy that made them legends on the touring circuit. This wasn't stadium rock, it was barroom brawling boogie, loud, loose, and impossible to just sit still through. And what they did, they blended genres like nobody else at the time. R&B, funk, blues, garage rock, all stitched together with a punky edge and a mischievous grin. While other bands leaned into heavy riffs or prog epics, Giles kept it grounded and gritty, influencing everything from Bruce Springsteen's stage presence to the rise of the bar band revival of the 1980s. And their early hits like Must Have Got Lost and Looking for a Love may not get as much airplay today, but they helped carve out a whole lane of fun, soulful rock that never took itself too seriously. And yet, somehow, they're often remembered for just one or two songs from the tail end of their career. But the Giles Band didn't just find a centerfold, they rewrote the party playlist. They proved that rock didn't have to be brooding or bombastic, it could groove, sweat, and swing. Forgotten by the mainstream, maybe, but never by anyone lucky enough to see them live. Bread. If you ever sat cross-legged on shag carpet, crisscross applesauce, staring at the ceiling and letting your feelings feel, chances are Bread was playing. These guys weren't about ripping solos or psychedelic freakouts. They were all about melody, vulnerability, and making soft rock feel like a warm hug from the FM dial. David Gates had a voice smoother than a freshly zambonied ice rink, and when Make It With You hit it in 1970, soft rock officially had its first #1. Suddenly it was cool to get emotional. And then songs like Baby I'ma Want You and Everything I Own, they weren't just love songs, they were gentle gut punches, the kind of music that made you miss someone you hadn't even met yet. Bread had 7 straight top 20 hits and helped define the softer side of the decade. They paved the way for acts like Air Supply, England Dan and John Ford Coley, and even the mellow moments of Chicago. But today, you'll mostly find them on love song compilations or your mom's cleaning the house playlist, but their impact still lingers. Soft rock didn't just get its name from these guys, it got its heart, its bread and butter. The Raspberries. Now let's talk about the band that mashed up teen heartbreak, thunderous drums, and a Beatles haircut into something so catchy it practically came with its own bubblegum-scented 45 sleeve. The Raspberries exploded out of Cleveland in the early 70s like a sugar rush with a guitar amp, fronted by Eric Carmen, who had a voice that could go from dreamy to desperate in one verse flat. When Go All The Way hit in 1972, it was like someone plugged a jukebox into a jukebox and said, let's bring back hooks so big they'll need their own zip code. Now, these guys didn't just make catchy tunes, they revived an entire style of songwriting. At a time when the airwaves were dominated by hard rock and prog epics, the Raspberries brought back the art of the 3-minute power pop anthem. And I don't feel they were copying the Beatles, they were continuing the mission. Tight harmonies, explosive choruses, and lyrics that balanced innocence and urgency. Bruce Springsteen called them an influence, Kiss took notes, and Cheap Trick basically took the Raspberries' DNA and cranked it up to 11. But despite a few big hits and some TV appearances, the Raspberries never became a household name. Eric Carmen's solo ballads later took off, but the band itself left in the attic with the rest of the 45s. But here's the thing, without them, the whole genre of power pop might have fizzled out before it even got its platform shoes on. The Grassroots. You might not recognize the name right away, but trust me, you know the Grassroots. If you ever belted out Temptation Eyes into a hairbrush or caught yourself swaying to Midnight Confessions, you've already been under their spell. In the late 60s and early 70s, the Grassroots were everywhere. Their songs had that sun-soaked California feel, equal parts garage grit and pop smooth, catchy choruses, really tight hooks, and a groove that slid into every radio format like butter on toast. They weren't flashy, and maybe that's why they don't show up in many rock documentaries. No big scandals, no dramatic implosions, just hit after hit. Over a dozen top 40 singles and more than 20 million records sold. What made them quietly revolutionary was they helped bridge the gap between the raw edge of the 60s rock and the more radio-polished sound that dominated the 70s. You could argue that they laid the groundwork for bands like REO Speedwagon, Styx, and Foreigner, with cleaner production, big choruses, and hooks made to last. They may not get the spotlight, but their influence never really faded. The Grassroots didn't just chart, they helped shape what rock radio became. And let's be honest, that hook from Sooner or Later, ooh, it still slaps. Poco.
It happens all the time, this crazy love.
You ever hear Crazy Love or Rose of Cimarron and feel like you were suddenly riding shotgun on a sun-drenched back road? Well, that's Poco, one of those bands you knew by sound, even if the name didn't always stick. And before the Eagles were racking up platinum records and dominating every DJ setlist in America, Poco was already laying down the sound they'd become famous for. These guys came straight out of the Buffalo Springfield split and wasted no time mixing country twang with rock rhythms in a way that felt brand new. They had the perfect mix of pedal steel guitars, smooth harmonies, and just the right amount of toe-tapping joy. I mean, throw on You Better Think Twice and tell me you don't want to drive down a dusty back road with the windows down. And here's the kicker, Poco didn't just help invent country rock, they practically handed it off to the Eagles. Randy Meisner left Poco and helped start the Eagles. Timothy B. Schmidt followed the same path. Poco was like the unsung training ground, cooking up a sound that others took to the bank. And sure, the Eagles went on to sell a bazillion records, but Poco's DNA is all over that entire era of laid-back, harmony-rich, country-tinged rock.
So I can't be with you now, babe. This song being...
They never became a big flashy name, and that's probably why they don't get talked about much these days. But if you love that California country rock vibe, and let's be honest, who didn't? Then you already love Poco, even if you didn't realize it. They didn't chase the spotlight, they lit the path. America.
Been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the...
The moment a horse with no name drifts in, you hear those opening notes and suddenly you're transported. Dry heat, desert breeze, and a whole lot of wondering what it all means. That was America's magic. They burst onto the scene in the early 70s with a sound that felt like a peaceful road trip through your own thoughts. Acoustic guitars, soft harmonies, and lyrics that were just vague enough to feel profound. And let's not forget, these guys weren't even American. They were the sons of US servicemen stationed in England, which somehow made their take on American folk rock feel even more wistful and wide-eyed. And after Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young set the table, America pulled up a chair and served their own blend of harmony-heavy folk pop. But despite their string of hits and a sound that defined an entire acoustic era, America doesn't always get the credit they deserve. But if you came of age in the 1970s, their music was probably humming in the background of some of your best memories. They didn't just write tunes, you lived inside of them. America gave folk rock its passport to the big time, and the trip was truly unforgettable. Were you an America fan back in the day? Please tell me in the comments section what was your favorite song. The Sweet. If Ballroom Blitz makes you want to strike a pose, shout "Are you ready, Steve?" and flip over a coffee table for dramatic effect, then you already know The Sweet. In fact, if you ever strutted into a roller rink wearing satin pants and a confident smirk, chances are The Sweet was blaring over the speakers. These guys were pure glam rock chaos, glitter, grit, and hooks sharp enough to leave a mark. Ballroom Blitz was just a great song, a great moment for sugar-fueled rock explosion that made you want to grab a mic stand, knock over a lamp, and start your own band in the garage. And Fox on the Run was the sound of cool itself, catchy, sleek, and just dangerous enough to make your mom raise an eyebrow. Kiss, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, all of them owe a debt to The Sweet. Cause The Sweet proved you could be theatrical and hard-hitting, like a Broadway show with a Marshall stack behind it. And yeah, they were massive in Europe and had a solid run in the States, but somehow their name has slipped through the cracks, while their sound has lived on in every leather-clad rock band that followed. So no, you might not hear them on the radio every day now, but trust me, their fingerprints are everywhere. They made pop music punch harder, and they made the rock strut a little bolder. The Sweet didn't just bring the blitz, they stamped the playbook with glitter on the pages. Atlanta Rhythm Section.
I am so into you. I can't think enough.
Maybe you slow dance to So Into You, or called Imaginary Lover on late night radio, smooth, sultry, and unmistakably southern. If Lynyrd Skynyrd was the rowdy cousin doing donuts in the dirt lot, Atlanta Rhythm Section was the cool older brother with a clean car, a smooth sound, and a steady hand on the wheel. ARS took that southern rock attitude and sanded off the rough edges, trading beer-soaked brawls for cocktails and candlelight. Hits like Spooky had this effortless, velvety groove that still came with a southern drawl, but now it was wearing cologne and taking you dancing. And I think what made ARS stand out was how they blended genres without making a big fuss about it. They had the soul of the South, sure, but they added a layer of studio polish that nudged them into pop and adult contemporary territory. And that crossover appeal helped shape an entire lane of southern rock that was both radio-friendly and smooth enough for folks who'd never heard of Muscle Shoals. You could play them on rock stations and while making dinner. I mean, how many bands can pull that off? They had the hits, they had the chops, but they didn't lean on flash or controversy, so they tend to get overlooked today. But the truth is, Atlanta Rhythm Section expanded what southern rock could be. The Babies. Don't let the name fool you. The Babies were not singing lullabies, with a sound that blended glam rock emotion and arena-sized ambition. These guys quietly helped invent the power ballad as we know it. If you remember dancing to Isn't It Time, or slipping Every Time I Think of You onto a mixtape you totally didn't make, then yeah, you already know the Babies. Fronted by a young John Waite, whose voice could go from delicate to devastating in one breath, the Babies delivered big emotion with even bigger hooks. Their songs didn't just play, they soared. They weren't topping every chart, but they were building the bridge from 70s glam swagger to 80s arena bombast. And here's the wild part. Members of the Babies literally helped shape the next wave too. Jonathan Cain jumped ship to Journey and co-wrote Don't Stop Believin', while Wade scored a solo #1 with Missin' You. So even if the Babies never became a household name, their sound certainly did. But today they're a deep cut, buried in record bins and memory banks, but their influence lives on in every slow-build rock anthem that makes you clench your fist and sing like nobody's watching. The Babies didn't stick around, but boy did they leave a mark. Firefall.
Just remember I love you, and it'll be alright.
Firefall was like the perfect soundtrack for a quiet drive home after a long day. Windows cracked, headlights on low, and that bittersweet feeling hanging in the air. They came out of the mid-70s Colorado scene, right alongside bands like the Flying Burrito Brothers and early Dan Fogelberg, and they brought with them a smooth, country-tinged rock sound that was equal parts comfort and craftsmanship. Songs like You Are the Woman, Just Remember I Love You, and Strange Way all had beautifully soft harmonies and shimmering guitar work that made you want to linger a little longer before you pulled into the driveway.
Oh, you are the woman that I've always dreamed of. I knew it from the...
What set Firefall apart though was how clean and lush everything sounded. This wasn't barroom honky-tonk or southern twang, it was gentle. Finely layered music that still had roots in country but aimed higher, smoother, and more romantic. They really helped shape the softer side of FM radio in the late 70s, that mellow zone between folk and rock, where emotions ran deep but everything sounded effortless. And their influence didn't stop there. If you've ever listened to modern Americana acts who blend storytelling with soft rock sheen, well, Firefall helped light that path.
You whisper softly, but the words were never plain.
They had a few hits and a pretty solid fan base, but like many of their contemporaries, their name got lost in the shuffle as music moved on. Little River Band.
Walking through the park and reminiscing.
Ever find yourself humming, reminiscing, and suddenly you're back in that old kitchen, that old car you had, or that one perfect summer night? And that's Little River Band's magic. They didn't blow out the speakers or break guitars, they broke hearts gently. Though they came from Australia, they practically had honorary citizenship on American radio. Their harmonies were velvet smooth, their melodies quietly unforgettable. Reminiscing wasn't just a song, it was a time machine. Cool Change made you dream of sailing off into the sunset. And Lonesome Loser was the theme for every underdog with a decent mustache and a hopeful heart. But these guys weren't tabloid regulars. No scandals, no drama, just hit after hit. 13 US top 40 singles, in fact. People lumped them in with soft rock, but they had more edge than you might remember. A little Eagles polish, a little Steely Dan finesse, and a whole lot of soul. Toto, Ambrosia, Air Supply, they were all in the mix, but Little River Band had something a bit extra. They didn't scream for your attention, they earned it.
For a cool change.
So if you think they're a one-hit wonder, go back and give them a spin. You'll realize they were the soundtrack to your best drives, your quietest nights, and the memories you didn't even know you'd kept. Badfinger. If you caught Baby Blue playing over the Breaking Bad finale, or you remember singing along to Day After Day on a rainy afternoon, then you're one of the lucky ones who truly knew Badfinger. If you ever wondered what might have happened if the Beatles had passed the torch to a scrappy little brother band, well, they did. And that band was Badfinger, handpicked and signed to Apple Records, with Paul McCartney writing their first hit, Come and Get It. Badfinger came into the 70s riding a wave of Beatles-blessed hope and harmonies, and for a while they lived up to it. No matter what, and day after day, they made you feel love and heartbreak even if you hadn't lived it yet. But Badfinger didn't just ride the coattails of the Fab Four, they helped invent power pop, that perfect mix of guitar crunch and pop melody that bands like Cheap Trick, The Knack, and later even Oasis would build entire careers on. Their songs were packed with emotion, melody, and that slightly sad shimmer that made them feel real. But behind the scenes, it was anything but sweet. Legal fights, crooked managers, and financial devastation plagued them. And in one of rock's most tragic turns, 2 members, Pete Ham and Tom Evans, unalived themselves. Their story faded, even while their influence lingered. They've been called the unluckiest band in rock, but that doesn't erase what they gave us.
No matter where you go, there will always be a
Badfinger didn't just echo the Beatles, they kept the melody alive when the world needed it most. Forgotten by many, but never by those who really listened. Man, what a ride! From the smooth sounds of Fireball to the southern rocking of ARS, these bands might not get the headlines anymore, but they sure left a mark. So now I've gotta ask, how many of these bands did you actually remember? Which ones made it onto your mixtapes, your road trips, your turntable on a lazy Sunday morning? And did I miss one? Did I forget an awesome but forgotten 70s band that helped change music forever? Well, tell me who in the comments section. I want to take a second listen. Hit that thumbs up icon if your feet started tapping during this video, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep unearthing the greatest deep cuts from your favorite decades. Until next time, from all of us here at Do You Remember, I'm Nostalgic Nick, and remember, forgotten doesn't always mean gone.